everybody. Welcome back to Wednesday Stash. Debbie here. Wednesday Stash is where I share ways that you can make your food last for longer. So today we're going to talk about drying vegetables. And as you can see, I'm peeling some carrots here because I wanted you to see the whole process for this. But I've got some other things already done that you can take a look at. We've been talking about drying food over the last few weeks, and today we're going to talk about drying vegetables. Next week we're going to talk about, last week we did herbs. Fruit leathers. The week before that we did herbs. Next week we're going to do meat. We're going to speak specifically about making jerky. So I'm going to go ahead and get these carrots peeled up. Before we get into drying vegetables, I had wanted to share, we started sauerkraut 3 weeks ago before we started the herbs. So I wanted to show you it. Sauerkraut came out really, really nice. I had to transfer it to these quart-sized jars because I needed my big jar to start another batch of pickles because we're almost out of the pickles that I have fermented several weeks ago. So they're almost all gone. So I started it up, and sauerkraut is good. It's delicious, and this will store, like we said before, this will store in the refrigerator for several months. I did make enough to can because with our ferments, we eat them. So if you want to make a whole bunch and can some, depending on what you're fermenting, yeah, that works. But a method that I like to use that works for me is you ferment as you go along. So you make some, once it's about almost all gone, start another batch, and then this way you always have it going. You don't run out. So we eat our ferments as they go along. That's what happened with the pickles. The pickles are almost gone, so I'm starting another batch of pickles. So like I said, the sauerkraut turned out great. If you've made some, please share. Just go ahead and drop in the comments section and let us know how your sauerkraut went. So like I said, we're talking about fermenting, we're going to talk about drying vegetables today. And I'm almost finished. I only have a couple more of these carrots, but let's do a little review. When we dry, we are removing the water. And when we remove the moisture, we prevent bacteria, yeast, and mold growth. Now remember, some foods, you can't dry at home. You have foods like cheese, yogurt, poultry, and eggs. They can't be safely dried at home, but things like veggies work great for drying at home. Some veggies work better than others, so I'm going to show you two type today. Carrots are on the list of, they dry really well. They're excellent candidates for drying. I get a bad spot here, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that because you want to use the best that you can. Just like nothing magic happens in the canner, nothing magic is going to happen in this dehydrator. So put good stuff in there, and you'll pull good stuff out. Let's see. Now, we dried fruit. Like I said, we can do veggies also, and meat. We're going to explore that next week. And we spoke about the different methods of drying food. So you can use a food dehydrator. You don't need one this big. They're the smaller ones that work really, really well. Electric dehydrators are very, very convenient, easy. They use little energy, and they don't heat your house up. You can use the oven. Now remember, for the fruit leathers, we were fine for using the oven for fruit leathers. But remember, this time of year you might not want to do it because you have to prop the oven door open. It's going to heat your kitchen up, and then it takes a long time as well, but you can do it. Same thing with your veggies. You can dehydrate in the oven. You're going to have to keep up with the temperature, because you want to dehydrate around 140 degrees. For veggies, a little bit lower than that, but you're shooting for about 140 degrees. And most ovens now, the lowest setting you can get is 170 degrees, and that's too hot. So you're going to have to prop that door open, keep moving your trays around, rotating it so that it can dry evenly. And then we spoke about, we did dehydrate herbs in the microwave, which would work. Dehydrating veggies in the microwave is not going to work. We're not going to be dehydrating them. We're going to be cooking them. And dehydration is not drying foods, it's not cooking foods. It's removing the moisture. And then sun drying in North Carolina is not recommended just because, we have fierce humidity. It would take so long. There are other parts of the country, and if you're seeing this somewhere other than North Carolina, yeah, there are other places where sun drying works well. The humidity's low, you have a lot of sun, and it will work. But here, sun drying doesn't work so well. So that's where I keep coming back to dehydrator. It's really friendly. It's easy for drying. Now, what you're doing when you're drying, it removes the water that would otherwise be available to microorganisms that cause food spoilage, and then in vegetables, microorganisms that could cause foodborne illness. Because you remember with our fruit, there's acid. You have acid that's there. That's a protective measure as well. But the pH in vegetables is not as the pH is not as low. It's not a high acid food the way fruits are high acid foods. So with these, you need to dry. You're going to dry a whole lot more, and we're going to talk about that further along with drying. So I have these carrots all peeled, and I'm going to go ahead and slice it, and I'll just let you know for this. For the carrots, we're going to slice to, we're going to cut it. You can do slices, but I'm going to do 1/8 inch sticks because that's about the size that you want them. You want them really thin. Carrots are, you want nice, fresh, crisp carrots, but you want it thin enough that you can evenly disperse all of that water. So that's why you're going to go with 1/8 inch thickness. So we're going to go ahead and get these sliced up to that 1/8 inch thickness. And okay, so now, like I said, the reason that you're drying, you're removing water that would otherwise be available to microorganisms or microbes that would cause food spoilage or foodborne illness. So we want to remove that moisture and make it so that it's not available. Okay? So once you get the carrots at the right size, I'm going to do one more carrot because the next thing that you're going to do before you can dry vegetables, you're going to have to blanch them. Now, the reason that you're blanching is to stop enzymatic activity. Now, the enzymes are, they break the food down, so you want to inactivate the enzymes. They affect the color of the food. They affect flavor. The enzymes affect texture. So for a good quality, and that's what you're going to go through all this trouble trying to dry your vegetables. You want to have good fruit for all of your labor. So go ahead and blanch first, and I'm going to show you the steps for blanching. And my water's rapidly boiling. I'm going to turn the heat up a bit more so it's boiling vigorously. And we're going to take these carrots. I'm going to get a red one in here as well. And then I can do the rest later. Now, different vegetables have different blanching times. So in the comment section, there are going to be some links to some resource guides that will give you, it will list the blanching times as well as the drying times for different vegetables. And you want to go by those specific times. You don't want to over blanch, because you're over blanching the food. You're moving into cooking, and that's going to affect the food quality. But then you don't want to under blanch, because under blanching can stimulate enzymatic activity, and you don't want to do that. You want you want to stop. You want to slow down the enzymatic activity. You don't want to help it along. So look at the specific times for the food that you're blanching, and then also remember that blanching is a two-step process. So you're going to blanch. The two steps are boiling water. You're going to immerse the food in boiling water for the specified amount of time, and then you're going to immerse it immediately after blanching. You're going to immerse it in ice water to stop the process. You want it to, you don't want to cook it. You want to blanch, and then you want to stop it. So you're going to plunge it into the ice water. So I have a bowl of ice water that's all ready as well. Now there are different blanching methods. You can do boiling water blanching or steam blanching. For some foods, steam blanching works well, like mushrooms. Mushrooms, it works a whole lot better to steam blanch them than to boiling water blanch them. But for the majority of vegetables, boiling water blanching, you're going to wind up with a higher quality product. And then also with boiling water, you can blanch more vegetables at the same time. With steam blanching, you have to do it in very small batches in a single layer, because you want to make sure that steam is coming into contact with the entire surface of that vegetable. So it takes you longer with steam blanching, and that's why you'll notice with a lot of publications, when you look at your tested recipes, it's going to give you water. It's going to give you boiling water blanching times, but you'll notice the foods in the resources that I'll share with you. You'll notice that there are recommended times for recommended foods for steaming as well. So it'll let you know which one. Like I said before, all vegetables, you can dehydrate all vegetables, but some vegetables they dry a whole lot better than other vegetables. And in that guide, it's also going to give you a list of the different foods that which ones are which work better than others. So you'll find that. Let's see. One of the things that you need to keep in mind also, vegetables, if you made the fruit leathers, you remember when we were drying the herbs, with the fruit, I'll stick with fruit leathers first. When we were doing the fruit leathers, it took about 6 hours to dehydrate them using the electric dehydrator. Now with the herbs don't take as long. They're a lot smaller, and the moisture is released a lot quicker. But with vegetables are going to take longer, because you're going to get them extremely dry. You're going to remove almost all, not 100% dry, of course, but you're going to remove most of the moisture, and it takes a while for vegetables. And with vegetables, you're going to look at your guide, and it's going to tell you what the texture should be like. So I have some squash that's in the dehydrator, and I'm going to show you what that squash looks like. But for the squash, it says that it should be tough to crisp. For things like carrots carrots are going to be brittle. They're gonna that's how long you want to dry them, so long that they become brittle, or if they're really tough as well. And you'll know this because if they're at the brittle stage, you can, if you smacked it with a hammer, they would shatter. That's how dry they are. And that's what you want. You want them as dry as possible, so that they will keep. And then when you dry them, you want to store them where the moisture is not going to, they're not going to reabsorb the moisture. And that's the key for all dried foods, to protect them from absorbing, the moisture that's in the air. There's a lot of moisture in our air, and you don't want, if it reabsorbs that moisture, they're gonna spoil. They're gonna mold. You might have, mostly you're gonna have mold growth. Depending on what the food is, you might have yeast growth. So that's what you want to make sure that you protect them. You can use jars. You can use food storage bags, just to make sure that you block the moisture out, and then limit how much you open it, because every time you open it, you might be allowing a little bit of moisture in. So our carrots are all ready. I'm going to pop them into the boiling water, and according to the guide, it says for carrots, you need to put them in boiling water for 3.5 minutes. So we're going to do that and start the timer. So I'll go this way instead. So they're in there, and timer 1, 2, 3. I'll give it a little bit. I can't do 3.5. And you want it in rapidly boiling water. I can't show you the canner, but it's rapidly boiling over here. And you want to make sure that you're blanching in plenty of water. So in the guide, it's going to tell you how much water that you need per volume of food, because you don't want to use too much. You don't want too much water in, too little food. Too little water for the volume of food that you're trying to blanch, because it won't blanch properly. So you want to make sure you have a good amount of water. The food is completely immersed under that water, and for the entire time that's blanching. So we're going to go ahead and let that blanch. Let's see. And while that's going on, we did that. I'm going to show you the squash. And I shot carrots all over the place. Okay, in the comment section, I'm going to drop some pictures. I have pictures of the carrots. I have pictures of the squash before, like when I went through the whole process trimming it. This squash was cut into the recommendation, cut it into 1/4 inch slices, and then once you cut it into the 1/4 inch slices, blanch. I blanched it, I plunged it to the ice water, and then I arranged it to the tray. Now, when I filled up this tray, they were all practically touching. I completely covered the tray. I have another tray in there. They were all practically touching, but you see now that they're completely dehydrated. What happened? It shrunk a whole lot, and that was all of the water coming out of it. In the resource that I provided for you, there's also a rehydrating guide. So all right, this is dehydrated, you're ready to use it, and you decide, okay, how am I going to use this? What am I going to use it for? That guide will tell you, how to reuse it. You might want to use it in soups, you want to use it in casseroles, however you want to use it. Or these turned out to be really great chips. They're good. These don't have any seasoning on them because I dehydrated just plain squash, and they still taste good. So I guess you could sprinkle them with a little salt, or put some kind of seasoning on if you wanted to make like herbal vegetable chips. But with the texture, like I said, you hear, I don't know if you can hear that, but you can hear it's brittle. They snap apart. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for and I'm going to give it a couple of more seconds because it needed to be 3.5 minutes. So I'm going to give it 30 more seconds. Okay. And it's almost there. I'm just going to make sure, give it, okay, so we have 3.5. There we go. So we have 3.5 minutes. So what you're going to do, you're going to remove it from the boiling water, and then I have ice water right here, and I'm going to put the carrots immediately into the ice water. And we're going to let that sit in there for 3.5 minutes. Turn this off, back to the back, and we're gonna let that cool down. Okay, so with the squash, like I said, it's dry brittle. I guess you can hear that snap, and these are ready to be stored. And like you can use glass jars. I'm gonna put these in a Ziploc bag. Put these in the storage bag. And you see how little are here. With the squash, I purchased only about 3 pounds. And the reason I wanted to demonstrate squash is because you know, we're headed into squash territory, or we're already in squash territory, and I'm right here. All right, we're already into squash territory. So when you get to the point where you're tired of eating squash, you've been giving the squash away, your neighbors are avoiding you because you're leaving bags of squash you know, on their doorstep. You've canned it, you don't know what else to do with it. Dehydrating is a great way to store it, because look how little space it takes up. This was about 3 pounds of squash. Look what's in the bag. Okay, so you can think about maybe if I had all of the trays completely, I had 3 pounds of squash, did 1.5 trays. If I had done all 9 trays, I'm pretty sure I still could get all 9 trays in here. And if I did 1.5 trays and I had 3 pounds of squash, let's see, I'm thinking even if I'm filling up this dehydrator, I could probably fill up this dehydrator, you know, with about 12.5, 13 pounds, you know, maybe 14 pounds of squash, and get it all into this Ziploc bag. So that's one of the reasons why dehydrating is so popular, is because it's very little space. You know, it's not a whole lot of weight. It's easy to store. So that's why people, they like dehydrating. So I'm gonna remove all of the air out of this. Some people like to vacuum seal their dehydrated products. With this one is so obviously dry. Sometimes I'm hesitant for recommending vacuum sealing dehydrated foods, depending on what the foods are, because if there's a chance that, we give it 30 more seconds, there's a chance that if there's moisture and you vacuum seal it, you've set the conditions up for what? For Clostridium botulinum spores to become vegetative and produce toxins that could cause botulism. So that's why I sometimes with vacuum sealing, I mean, if you're vacuum sealing to go into the freezer, freezing is, you know, your protective measure, so that's not an issue. But with drying foods, you have to be really, really careful about vacuum sealing drying foods to make sure that they are truly completely dry, and you're not setting up conditions for you know, for microorganisms to grow in there, and the most hazardous one, of course, being Clostridium botulinum spores to become vegetative. So When I don't use, let's see, oh, that's off. 1 second, I'm gonna pour this out. And we're going to drain the carrots. Go. There. All right. So we have our carrots. They're dry. Have been properly blanched. We'll bring them here, and then we're going to arrange them on our drying rack. Let's see, I lost my spoon, guys. It's okay, have others. Okay, so you want to, when you're drying, you want to make sure they're in a single layer. Spread them out. You don't want anything overlapping or touching. Just spread them out. And fingers will do better than a spoon right now. Okay, so once you get them in a single layer, I could probably squeeze some more on there, but it'll be easier just to get another tray. So we'll go ahead and cover this tray as well. And this was about 2 pounds of carrots. And we don't want the ice, so I'm going to go ahead and pick those out. All right, so we have our carrots are out of there. No carrot left behind. There we go. Put that up there. Okay, and we're just going to spread those carrots out so that they're not overlapping. And that's the reason you want to cut them to uniform size. Like I said, we cut these down to 1/8 inch so that they can dry evenly and completely. And then you also want uniform sizes so that you have a tray where they're all drying uniformly. You don't have some that are so much drier than, you know, some are crisp or brittle dry, but then you have others that are still moist. So in order to encourage even drying, you make sure that they're the same size. So these are spread out, trying to get any that are touching each other or well laying on top of each other. If they're touching, it's okay, because as they desiccate, as they dry out, they're gonna shrink, they'll move apart. But we do not want any that are on top of each other. Okay, so we're going to pop this into the dehydrator and follow the manufacturer's instructions for your dehydrator. So you see those don't look, they look beautiful. I'm going to put these in here. Here's our other tray. All right. And then you're going to follow the manufacturer's instructions. For this particular one, carrots are going to take you approximately 12 hours to dehydrate. So for this particular one, it says vegetables 125 degrees. All you're going to do is set the time, and then you're good to go. Thank you for joining me on Wednesday Stash, where I share ways that you can get your food to last for longer. Join me next week. We're going to make jerky. I'll have some made, and then I'll show you the process for making jerky. But it's been great, and wow, 1 hour. This is my longest one, guys. Phew. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye.